Lagos, the nation's commercial capital. This is the news at 10, live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight.
Hello and welcome. Tonight, members of the Lake Chad Basin Commission mobilized forces to fight Boko Haram, raised 2 billion naira for the campaign. Federal Capital Territory High Court strikes out case against Aminu Oguche, the alleged mastermind of Nyanya bomb blast. Lagos PDP Delegates Congress turns violent. Security operatives fire tear gas to calm frayed nerves. And Iran's nuclear talks deadline extended to June next year.
On business news tonight, Nigeria's Monetary Policy Committee x-rays developments in the global and local economies.
And on sports news tonight, Rivers State wins the 5th National Female Cricket Championship at the Abuja National Stadium.
A strong regional alliance is continuing in the Lake Chad Basin states as member countries all agree to confront terrorism as a united front. And to back this up, 2 billion naira has been raised to establish a joint force to bring terrorism to an end. The Executive Secretary of the Lake Chad Basin Commission, Mr. Sanusi Abdullahi, at a special summit in Abuja, Nigeria's capital city, told Chiefs of Defense staff from member states that the amount will fund requirements of small equipment and troops' welfare.
This is the fourth meeting of ministers and chiefs of defense staff and heads of security intelligence from members of the Lake Chad Basin Commission and Republic of Benin to review best strategies in the fight against terrorism. Nigeria's Chief of Defense Staff, Air Marshal Alex Badi, believes such collaboration with member states is needed to stop terrorism.
This is the time for affirmative action. It is very important for us to build enduring structures that will have pragmatic value on the Lake Chad Basin Commission community. The military structure in terms of the multinational joint task force is one of such structures and has to be fully activated.
The Lake Chad Basin Commission has estimated that it will need 8.714 billion cefas to fund the multinational forces at the borders.
The Lake Chad Basin Commission is committed and determined to support the multinational joint task force to see that the force is maintained and sustained at top capacity to face the challenges of its mission. In this regard, we are submitting to the Council of Ministers of the Lake Chad Basin Commission a budget of 8.714 billion CFA to fund urgent requirements of small equipment, troops' welfare, and training needs.
Nigeria has continued to seek cooperation from members of the Commission to prosecute the war against insurgency. But how much of this has been seen in the face of allegations of complacency against the Chadian government?
As far as this issue of boosting security in the region and cooperation, Chad is in the lead of this, and I can assure you that.
Meanwhile, the Chadian Chief of Defense Staff refused to comment on allegations of his country's complacency.
The allegation against your country on fostering Boko Haram insurgency because of your interest in your country's interest.
It's better to find a translator because he didn't speak English. So.
You don't understand your...
It is hoped that this meeting will strengthen the collaborations and renew the multinational fight against terrorism.
And while that effort to combat terrorism was on, terror was being unleashed on Damasak town on the border with Niger Republic. Scores of people were reported killed and some houses were burnt. Eyewitnesses told our correspondent that gunmen in a convoy attacked the town with improvised explosive devices and petrol bombs, killing scores of residents. Damasak town is about 187 kilometers north of Maiduguri, the state capital. It was gathered that the gunmen were dressed in military uniform, giving the impression that they were there to protect Damasak, only to launch an attack on the town. This incident comes after the killing of over 40 fishermen and traders at the weekend by militants at Dorunbaga, 155 kilometers east of Damasak, the council headquarters of Mobar. And now one of the masterminds of the Nyanya bombing was today set free by the Federal High Court in Abuja, although the Department of State Services chose to keep him in detention. The 2 counts were struck out by Justice Adeni Ademola for want of diligent prosecution by the Inspector General of Police. The suspect, Aminu Oguche, who was in court, however, remains in the custody of the DSS, which is yet to arraign him. Our correspondent Amaka Ukafo reports.
Mr. Aminu Oguche was arrested in Sudan and brought to the country on the 15th of July 2014 on charges of being the mastermind of the twin bombing in Nyanya, Abuja. On his return, the Department of State Services got a court order to remand him in their custody for further investigation. It has been more than the 90 days requested by the Department of State Services, and it has been unable to arraign the suspect. According to the prosecution, the DSS is still drafting charges against the suspect and will arraign him at the appropriate time. This decision was opposed by the accused, who had filed a case alleging the violation of his fundamental rights. The case has been fixed for December 5th for hearing.
We are not saying if there is anything against him, he should be freed. We are saying charge him to court or release him. That is all we are saying. Because he's been there since July 15, 2014. which is in excess of 4 months, and the Constitution, by virtue of Section 35, frowns at that.
The court also struck out the case filed by the Nigerian police force against Mr. Oguche for want of diligent prosecution. This is the 3rd time the court had called the case without an appearance or explanation by the police.
I wish he is discharged. But the reality is that today he was brought to court not on account of that charge, but on account of the fundamental human rights proceedings. So that charge is a separate issue entirely. And I think the security agencies have harmonized, and maybe the police now conceding to the SSS to do the prosecution. So that is the way I will explain it. It's not that he's out. It's not out. I do not know why the police have not followed it up.
The court also made an order that the accused be allowed to be visited by 3 of his lawyers, his wife, and any other family member, privileges he had not enjoyed since he was remanded in the custody of the Department of State Services. Amaka Ukafu, Channels Television News.
Well, on to security matters of a different nature. The Cross River State People's Democratic Party office has been attacked by people the police described as hoodlums. The state police relations officer, Hogan Bassi, told journalists that an improvised explosive device exploded around the PDP secretariat, although it was unable to penetrate the heavily fortified party office. According to the police, earlier today, hoodlums whose hopes were to bomb the party secretariat resulted in attacking its premises when it was obvious they could not go in. The explosion shattered some louvers on the ground floor, but no life was lost. The police anti-bomb squad has also cordoned off the area while investigations are ongoing. Well, I'm afraid it's more unfortunate news as pandemonium broke loose today at the People's Democratic Party here in Lagos as preparations for the rerun of the Congress, which was designed to select new delegates for the party's primaries, became rowdy. And to prevent a total breakdown of law and order, the police fired gunshots and tear gas to disperse the unruly party members. Heavily armed policemen deployed from the Lagos command to handle the situation are said to have arrested some people believed to be party thugs. Today's Congress was meant to take place in the 245 wards of the state. Now in part two, after the break, Nigeria's two major cargo handling companies shut down in Lagos. That's coming up in a moment. Do stay with us.